Your big takeaway from the president's address?
Well, I thought his speech last night, Betty, was effective, and it certainly is a big step for a man who has basically framed his presidency, much of his presidency, around ending America's wars abroad. He committed the U.S. to an open-ended military campaign against a terrorist group that now controls major parts of two countries, and this is a group, of course, that he had discounted as a threat just a few months ago. So you could sense in his voice the reluctance. He does not want to have to do this, but after seeing ISIL's advances, the beheadings of James Foley, Steve Sotloff, he knows that even a war-weary nation is ready to take these guys on if, big if, it doesn't involve U.S. boots on the ground. And he stressed, Betty, used very careful language here, this is a counter-terrorism effort, not a new war. And he laid out a clear goal, something he'd been criticized for before, degrade and defeat ISIL. He also told Congress he's ready to go alone if he has to, and that's, of course, different from how this all played out a year ago when he was talking about airstrikes against Bashar al-Assad. He asked for support from Congress. It was pretty clear he wasn't going to get it, and we saw what happened there. This is a different situation. He's prepared to go it alone. The question is, will he have to? He's asking for some sort of buy-in from Congress. We'll see if he gets it, but the response from most members that I heard last night, including some I spoke with personally, supportive of what he's talking about here, taking on ISIL, but some real questions specifically, Betty, about the training of those Syrian rebels, exactly what that's going to entail and what the full commitment here is of the United States.
Right. Is Congress behind that aspect of military action? Peter, the president didn't mention the cost of this. What is the price tag?
Yeah, well, it costs money to go to war, Betty, and to drop bombs in far-off places, and that's going to be the same thing here. The reality is we don't know the exact price tag, and the president didn't mention it last night. I think this is going to be one of the questions that comes up. We know that, of course, this is, and we can only hope it doesn't have the same price tag as Iraq and Afghanistan. More than $1.6 trillion in those two wars, and, of course, the much higher price in terms of Americans lost, U.S. casualties in those two conflicts. But we do have a sense, based on some of the estimates, some of what the White House talked about. $500 million was their request to train the Syrian rebels in their budget plan for fiscal year 2015. You also have a reference here for the Iraq airstrikes in August. $7.5 million a day for those airstrikes in August. That's what the Pentagon told us. So you can, maybe take a look at that as to what it might cost to expand into Syria. And they're going to pay for this, Betty, so they hope, by transferring funds that are already been appropriated for the war in Afghanistan, what's called the Overseas Contingency Operations Fund. About $2 billion is what they were asking for. The question is, will Congress go along?
Peter, is anyone using the word war, though, right now, Peter?
Well, certainly this president is trying to avoid it, but the reality is, Betty, that there are some members of Congress, and I've heard some Republicans even this morning say the president's decision to defeat ISIL may be not enough here. He needs to say they're going to defeat ISIL no matter what the cost, whether or not that potentially entails putting U.S. boots on the ground. There are some critics in Congress who are going to say this president did not go far enough. He has to take ISIL on and commit to defeating them no matter what that cost is, whatever it may be.
All right, Peter, thank you so much. Peter Cook, our chief Washington correspondent.